If you are looking to kick your cycling up to the next level and move into a clipless pedal system, maybe I can help guide you on some of the different options that are available and provide a real-world experience as I guide you through my journey to becoming a road cycling tragic. I had been riding for about 3 to 4 months when I decided to move from my riding in my runners to moving to a clipless system. Now at this stage I should point out that I was mainly riding on my flat bar hybrid on the commute to work. Now although my shorts may have still been baggy and my legs very hairy, I knew that deep down in my heart it wouldn't be long before a road bike would be finding its way into my stable. So I wasn't sure what sort of clipless pedal system I should go for, if I should just jump straight into a full road system. So I went to my local bike shop and sought the advice of some experts, and I think they took one good look at me and they wisely suggested that starting off on my hybrid, being the Fred that I was and probably still am, they suggested that I get a mountain bike pedal. So started off with the Shimano SPD, so the 2-bolt cleat system. This is the pedals that they recommended and that I purchased. It's the Shimano M540. It's a mountain bike pedal. It's an excellent pedal. It's a double-sided, so you can just clip in either side. For shoes, I also started out with these. So these are the Shimano again. Shimano makes some great shoes, and I highly rate their shoes. I've got another pair as well we'll look at shortly, but they're the Shimano M089s. So if you look at their current range, they're just a sort of mountain bike touring type of shoe. They've got an excellent grip. They've got a bit of flex in them, so they're very comfortable. So that's where I started off on my hybrid. So I started off with a mountain bike shoe, nice sole, and the double-sided mountain bike pedals, the M540s. So that was my first foray into clipless pedals. I had those on my commuter, and I commuted most of the year on that system with those shoes and those pedals, and they're great. They got me accustomed to riding, to clipping in and importantly clipping out. The shoes are really, really comfortable, and if you're commuting you need to be able to walk around. So the shoes are really comfortable, really safe, so able to walk around, but had all the benefits of a clipless pedals. My feet were locked in, so it was a really, really good move, and I immediately noticed the difference from riding in my flat shoes in my runners. Now if you're thinking of getting into clipless pedals, this is a great place to start. The Shimano SPD pedal, just get a nice double-sided pedal like this. They've got some other ones which you can, on one side they're clip in, and on the other side they're just like wear them with a flat shoe. But then you've got to make sure you clip in properly. There's a whole bunch of them, but these are the mountain bike ones. These are good. They're double-sided and a nice comfortable pair of shoes like the ones I showed you. They've probably got a lot of other options as well. They're really, really good. Now you can walk in them. They're really, really safe as well, and you will get a lot of the benefits, as I mentioned, from being clipped in. It'll be a big step up from just riding in normal flat shoes. Also, I found that on commuting on the path, especially through winter, being locked into the bike like that, I also found it was much safer, having your feet securely attached to the bike as well. So it has that added benefit too. When you stop for a coffee at the cafe, you won't be able, you'll be able to walk around properly. You won't look like a waddling duck. You can wear the shoes with normal clothes. You don't have to be all decked out in lycra. They're really, really good. So great place to start, and you're really not going to have any complaints if you start there. So that was me for a few months, pretty happy on my hybrid. Well, as I mentioned, I knew a road bike wouldn't be too far away, so sure enough, I took the plunge and bought my first road bike. For my road bike, I was obviously had the dilemma of whether or not to stick with the SPD or move to a full road system. Now, I did a lot of reading and a lot of the information out there. I mean, a lot of people said there's no problem sticking with a mountain bike system. Others said that it won't work, that it's not as efficient in pedaling. If you're on a road bike, you should have a proper road bike system with, road bike shoes. I found a lot of the times when they were talking SPD, they were talking about these mountain bike setup. They're always talking about it as a mountain bike option, as having a mountain bike setup on your road bike. Now, no one was talking about the touring option, so I looked into that in a little bit, and I found these pedals. So these are a touring pedal. These are the Shimano A600s. They're described as the Ultegra level, so I didn't feel so guilty putting these on my new fancy road bike. But they are a touring pedal made by Shimano. So they've got a slightly larger base compared to the mountain bike pedal. You can see here, if you can compare. So they're single-sided though, so a little bit trickier to clip into, but the clips and the cleats are the same as the mountain bike pedal. So I was basically riding that with the same mountain bike shoes. Now these they're pretty stiff actually. So that's where I started on my road bike. I stuck with the SPDs, but I went for the touring pedal, the A600. So I rode on this system for about 2 or 3 years. During that time, the funny thing happened. A couple other road bikes seemed to follow me home. I looked after them. I gave them a place to live. I gave them shelter, and in return, they let me ride them as well. Now, on all of those bikes, I just went with a Shimano A520. Now, that is just a basic touring pedal, and they're reliable, and they're really just as good as these A600s anyway. If you're from Melbourne, you're probably familiar with the Around the Bay bike ride. So I did the Around the Bay as well on the, again, the same system with the touring pedals and the mountain bike shoes. So that's a 200k bike ride around Melbourne, around Port Phillip Bay. The system is really great. So don't believe, you have to have a road bike with road pedals and so forth. The touring option is great. You can still walk around. It's really good. The base is a bit larger on these, so if you're starting to ride a little bit longer distances or spend more time in the bike, then they'll just give you a little bit more comfortable than the mountain bike pedal, which is a little bit smaller. That's what I found anyway. But it's probably now 2 years on, and I'd started to ride a little bit. I was starting to ride a lot more, I'd say. And I found that on longer bike rides, mainly flat, I was really just riding, around the bay, around the coast, 150, 250k type rides. Now, I found that when you're starting to ride the bigger distances, I did find that my feet were hurting a little bit. You may have heard of it, the term of it, like that hot foot or hot shoe. I was getting that a little bit, so I thought it might be time to get a new pair of shoes. Now, as I said, the hot shoe, that feeling was to me, it felt like my foot was sort of pushing around the pedal a little bit, like I could feel the pedal on under my foot. Now, this is only on big bike. This is only on big rides. I'm talking over 150k's, 200k's. I'd start to get that feeling. Now, if you're riding 100k's, it's fine. The SPD is absolutely fine. You shouldn't have any issues unless you suffer from sore feet or any of those sorts of things. But otherwise, it's fine for normal sort of recreational type of riding, commuting, 50k rides to the shops. The SPD, pedals are still, I would say, the pedal of choice. You can walk around on them. You're not in the tour. You not have to worry about losing the little bit of marginal gains and all that sort of nonsense. But if you are starting to get into bigger rides, you're starting to take your cycling a bit more seriously, or maybe you're finding your feet are hurting a little bit, then you may want to start looking at some other options. And let's get into those now. I should probably also point out that, on my journey to becoming a road cycling tragic, at this stage my lycra was tight, my legs were shaved, and I was manicuring some pretty crisp tan lines on my legs. Now, I'd ripped the visor off my helmet, and for all intents and purposes, maybe I would consider myself a roadie. So I thought it was time I was looking at getting a new pair of shoes. So I thought maybe it's time to jump into a full, road system. Now, again, I jumped on the keyboard and started doing some more research about what are the different options in shoes and so forth. And particularly, as I said, I could feel like my feet were getting a little bit sore sometimes underneath. Now, for me, the sensation was I could feel the pedal through my foot, if that makes sense. It felt like my foot was bending around the pedal, if you like. Now, a lot of the reading and on a lot of the forums, what a lot of people were saying was, no, you need to move to a road shoe because it gives you that platform, that base. The pedal is a lot bigger, and it'll give you that proper platform for pushing on. Now, some other people said, when you're pushing on your foot, when you're pushing on the pedal, you're pushing on the shoe. It's the shoe that's important. It's the shoe that needs to be stiff. It doesn't know what's going on. Your foot doesn't know what is going on underneath, what sort of pedal there is there, what sort of cleat there is, if it's a small cleat or a big road cleat. Now, that made sense to me, really. Now, another thing is as I said, I had 3 road bikes, and I didn't particularly like the idea of going out and buying a new road shoe, and then either having to wear my old shoes on some of the bikes or having to go and replace all the pedals on all my bikes. I decided to take the middle ground. Now, I decided to stick with the SPDs, but I decided to upgrade my shoe to a much stiffer and much better shoe. So for that, you're going to look at the cyclocross or XC racing type of shoe. So this is what I jumped into. It's a Sidi Drako. Now, this is their cyclocross racing shoe. So underneath, you'll see it's the same SPD 2-bolt cleat, but this time it's a full carbon sole. So it's a full carbon sole, but you can still walk on these. It has these studs for walking on. If you're a cyclocross, if you're familiar with that, that's where they get off their bike and run through the dirt and shoulder their bike and carry it over stuff. So these are cyclocross racing shoes. They're really, really stiff. These are really, really good shoes. Now, I'm not promoting Sidi here, but this particular shoe is now 3 years old. You can see, okay, I gave them a bit of a wash for the camera, but they will last a really, really long time. Now, all of the parts on this shoe are replaceable. The studs these studs and stops, as they wear out, you can replace those. You can buy new ones. I'm probably due as well for a replacement. The buckles are all replaceable as well as the tongue. Now, okay, these were over $400. They're not cheap. But if you look after them and maybe replace those things here and there as you go, these things would last for 10 years. I mean, I think that these things are indestructible. I think I'm more likely to wear myself out than I am to just wear out these shoes. So these are great. Now, once I started riding on these, I found a really, really big improvement from the mountain bike shoes. So it is true that the stiffness of the shoe, I think, carries more weight than what is going on underneath. So this is a great option if you're looking to step up from the recreational sort of mountain bike setup. You can stick with that, but just get into some cyclocross racing shoes, XC racing shoes. These, as I said, these are the Sidi Drakos. I'm not sure if they're still available, but they may have been superseded with a new model. I might link below to some of the details on the newest Sidi offerings, but there are a lot of really, really good XC racing shoes out there. Shimano has the XC7s. I was pretty close to grabbing those, and if you step up to their S-Fire line, they have the XC9s as well. They both look like really, really good shoes. Also, Lake has some good cyclocross shoes. I thought about those as well. And of course, you do also have the S-Works, have the cyclocross as well, and the Specialized have their S-Works range, and they do have some really good shoes as well for cyclocross racing shoes. But just remember, with any pair of shoes, especially cycling shoes, it's very, very important that you try the shoes before you buy them. Now, buy from your local store. It's always good to try and keep the guys in business. I know that very often everything's cheaper online, and I'm the same. I buy a lot of my stuff online, but for shoes, you really want to try them before you buy, as they say. Now, you know, Shimano, for example, have different sizing options. They have a wide fit and a narrow fit. Not all feet are the same, so you really want to try them beforehand. Now, one of the drawbacks of this type of shoe is you will be limited in the options that are available. If you're going to a full road shoe, very often you get last year's shoes at a bargain price. There's a lot more options out there. Whereas the XC racing is a bit more, the cyclocross racing type of shoe is a bit more specialized, and you don't quite get as many options out there, and you're less likely to find them on special. So that is just one thing to look out for. In fact, these actually look the same as Sidi's road shoes. So all the roadies out there, they won't even know that these are cyclocross shoes. Now, they come in all different colors. I got yellow because I've had enough of everything being black, and I wasn't quite ready for white. More on that later. But yeah, I have mates, they didn't even know that these were that I was wearing commuter cleats until they saw me get off the bike and just walk around like a normal person instead of waddling around like a twat. So they are good for that. But I did notice that because they are so stiff, that they are actually hard. They still are a bit trickier to walk in compared to the touring type or mountain bike shoes. So that's the middle option, I'd say, the XC racing shoe. A lot of the die-hard roadies out there will say that that this isn't the same as a full road system. Now, there are some differences. Okay, the full road system will give you that little bit more efficiency. The shoes are a little bit, you can get much lighter shoes, but I mean, really, we're talking like 1 or 2% here. If you're just a recreational cyclist, you're not looking for that last bit of performance, then it's really not going to matter. I think being able to walk around is much more important than that last 1 or 2% that you might get out of a full road system. But there are a couple of drawbacks to this system. Firstly, because you're looking at an XC racing shoe, your options, as I mentioned, will be more limited. Another disadvantage I should point out of the SPD system is float. Now, if you're not familiar with what that means, float means the amount that your foot is able to turn or articulate from side to side in the pedal. Now, it's not a matter of tightening up you can't adjust the float in an SPD system. That's it. There's one. These are the only cleats you can pretty much get, or there are a couple of different ones, but there's no adjustability for float by choosing different cleats, and there's no adjustment in the pedal either. Like, you can adjust the tension on the pedal, but that's just going to control how hard it is to unclip or not. So when you're starting off, you can keep them nice and loose so you can get out easily so you don't fall over, and then maybe as you go along you might tighten them up a little bit so they don't come out as easily. But yeah, you can't adjust the float at all with an SPD system. Now, if you've got a full road system, they normally can come with 3 different cleat options to adjust your float. So you can get the 0 degrees cleat, 7 degrees I think, and also 14 degrees. So now, I've read a little bit about float. It can be a good thing or a bad thing. Some people, depending if you've got sore knees or depending on your particular circumstances, float might be a good thing or it might not be a good thing. It just really depends. But with the SPDs, you will not be able to adjust the float on those at all, and they've got quite a bit of float. I think they would have over 10 degrees of float. That's something to consider as well. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be talking about clipless pedals based on some real world experience. So you might say, how come I can talk so much about the benefits and advantages of the different options out there if so far I've just been talking about SPD and some different shoe options? Well, my descent to being a road cycling tragic unfortunately, it doesn't stop here. So about 8 months ago, I decided to invest in my first power meter. Now I looked at the different power meter options, and I landed on the pedal-based system, the Favero Asioma power meter pedals. So I didn't really have a choice. It was time to let go of my beloved SPDs and move to a full road system. These are the shoes I bought. Now these are the Shimano RC9s. Now these are awesome shoes. They are really, really good. I've been really happy with them. Now, I don't know if you like the colour, but I think they're just magic. And they're not even white. They've got like a mother of pearl on them. Anyway, I don't want to sort of drool. I'll start drooling if I talk about the shoes too much. But anyway, so I moved into the full road system with the Shimano RC9s. Now, you can see the cleat. I mean, in comparison, the cleat is much bigger. Now, walking on these things is an absolute pain. You can see you're walking on the cleat. They're really slippery. This thing isn't replaceable, so it wears out. I mean, these things are really lightweight shoes. You can see them. I mean, these you can just feel it. These are chunky. These will survive the zombie apocalypse. These won't survive anything. They're really light. So, but they are extremely comfortable. If you're looking to get into a road shoe, I've been absolutely happy with these. Now, again, try before you buy, because as I said, Shimano comes with a narrow and a wide option as well. These are the standard. These are the narrow ones. Now, what I found was I tighten these up all the way, and I could even tighten them up some more. So they're plenty wide for me. Versus these ones, the Sidis are much tighter. The Sidis actually probably fit me better this way. I can tighten them up, and they can get they fit my foot better. Maybe I've got a narrower foot. I don't know. But these ones, I have to tighten them all the way. But they're super comfortable. They're like wearing. They're just really soft and supple on the top. So it's like wearing a pair of slippers, but they're like bolted to a plank of wood. They're just rock solid, stiff. So they're probably a little bit stiffer than these. So in terms of comparing the two systems, we are comparing two different shoes as well. Now these are a pretty high-end shoe. These are over $400. These are high-end XC shoe, that cyclocross shoe. They're full carbon as well. Versus these are a little bit stiffer, but we are in the same ballpark. But these are really good. So let's get into some of the differences that I've experienced comparing now with riding these for 8 months versus the SPDs. Okay, so the road system is marginally better than the SPD. Now, the first thing I noticed is I don't know if it's there's less float, but you do, when you clip in, you feel much more locked in to the bike, to the pedals. They are a little bit harder to clip in and out of, but not a lot. Now, on the SPD with the touring pedals, they're single-sided, so they do still take some skill, and there's not much of a difference. These aren't that much harder to clip into. They're about the same. There's not really much of a difference. The mountain bike ones, they're easy as, because they're double-sided. In fact, I still use that when the weather gets really nasty. I ride my flat bar with those pedals. I just stamp on the pedals, and it's safe in the wet. Your feet don't slip off. That's another thing. These shoes, they don't have any grip on them at all here. So sometimes if you're trying to clip in, your foot can slip off the pedals. Whereas these are really easy because they're all rubber, and the pedal doesn't slip. Your foot doesn't slip off the pedal. So it's really easy to clip in, not just with a double-sided pedal, but the shoes as well. These are much easier. These ones, the pedal would slip off a lot, and at first I found it a little bit tricky, and even now sometimes I what can I say? I'm not a pro. But yeah, so the road shoe, the full SPD, the SPD-SL, or these are actually Look. These aren't Shimano cleats. These are Look. I mean, they're still a 3-bolt cleat. They're probably about the same as a Shimano. So SPD-SL, you will feel much more locked into the bike. Absolutely. In terms of pedal efficiency, I think as I mentioned, we're comparing two high-end shoes. These are stiffer. These are noticeably a little bit stiffer. They are a little bit more efficient. Again, I mean, I'm splitting hairs. If you want to improve your cycling, there's much more ways that you're going to get better results than from any of these options on your pedals. You know, just lose a kilo and it'll make a much bigger difference. I don't mean to, there's more that you can gain on the rider in cycling in general than your equipment. So that's something that I think we all know that. But we can buy a lot of cool gear, and that's part of the fun of the hobby, I guess. What else is there? These are a pain to walk in. I mean, you wear out the cleats walking on the cleats all the time. So I don't commute on these. If you need to walk around, I use these when I go for a more serious bike ride, when I know I'm really not going to be walking around very much. For commuting, I've got to walk around the car park, through the building. These are a pain in the butt. I'll wear out the bottoms. I don't commute in these at all. I wouldn't recommend it either. I mean, there really is no point. You're not in the tour, you're just riding to work, and any of the normal mountain bike setup will be more than enough. Oh yeah, another thing about the RC9s. If you're in Melbourne and you're looking to buy a pair, again, I'm not sponsored. If you look online, they're $440 everywhere. Now, in Elizabeth Street, the boys at Cecil Walker, they might be a bit old-fashioned because Google did not come up in my Google search, but they have these for $360, and they are the cheapest you're going to find them in Melbourne anywhere. So go down to the boys at Cecil Walker in Elizabeth Street and grab these. I go in that shop all the time, and most of the bike shops in Melbourne are going to kick me out one of these days. And I nearly bought these for $440 elsewhere, and just by luck, I happened to ask at their shop if they had them, and they had them, like I said, for $360. I would have felt like a real wally if I didn't buy them from there, because those guys have put up with me all the time walking through their shop. So support your local shop where you can, and sometimes you can even save yourself a few bucks in the process. So that's my real world experience through commuting, through more serious cycling, and looking at the different clipless pedals options that are out there. Now, I haven't talked about Speed Play or the Egg Beaters or the crank pedals from Crank Brothers. I haven't had any experience in riding using those, so I'm sure they're great too, but I haven't used them, so it's probably not fair that I comment on those. I don't have any experience in using any of those systems, but hopefully today I've given you some food for thought. If you're just commuting or just doing a lot of recreational cycling, stick with the SPDs. Get yourself a nice, comfortable pair of shoes. You can ride your bike with a bit more efficiency, be a bit more safer on the bike as well, being locked in, and you'll still be able to walk around safely, and they're a really, really good option. At the other end of the scale, if you want to go a full road system, there are some benefits to those, and hopefully I've given you some consideration in the middle ground. So look at a SPD touring pedal with a good quality cyclocross racing shoe or a stiffer type of shoe. That is probably the middle ground, which for most cyclists will also be more than enough or more than adequate for a lot of cycling. For me, if it wasn't for the power meter, if it wasn't for looking at getting a power meter, I would still be using that on all my road bikes. And you're not getting dropped because you don't have road bike shoes. If you're getting dropped, it's not because of the 1% you're losing through the pedals. So don't underestimate walking. It's part of being a human being. It's great. Walking is great. You get off your bike and you don't have to waddle around like a tosser. So don't think that just because you're riding on your road bike and you're shaving your legs that you need to get into a full road pedal. So hopefully I've given you a few things to think about and helped you choose the clipless system that's going to work the best for you. Now comment below if you have any questions. or if you have your own suggestions or feedback. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and I'd also really appreciate it if you'd subscribe as well. So until next time, get out there, ride your bike and have lots of fun. GoPro, stop recording.